Hi guys, what's up? And I'm back. Welcome to Intentionally Nia. I'm Nia Reese. So we came back to talk about Saturn, and in this video I want to talk about Saturn and spirituality. I think I want to use this as a chance to kind of explain what my spiritual path has been, spirituality for me, and also just explain how Saturn relates to spirituality, because a lot of people don't talk about that. Like I haven't really heard about, like, when you talk about spiritual things, when it comes to like astrology, most people, they mention the moon, they mention Pluto, they mention Neptune for sure. But Saturn is a very spiritual planet as well. It's just in a different way. So I would kind of want to talk about those things that I've discovered. And then I'll also talk about how I think my Saturn return is going to affect my spirituality, like what the lessons of my Saturn return will teach me about myself spiritually, so that you can kind of look and see those things as well, right? So one of the things that I think of as far as relating Saturn to spirituality is the fact that Saturn rules time. And one thing that we always talk about and we always hear when we're referring to like being spiritual is understanding divine timing, right? Understanding that everything happens when it's supposed to, and nothing is a coincidence, nothing is a mistake. Saturn teaches us about time by also teaching us how to respect that things should happen when they're supposed to happen, right? One thing that totally comes to mind is like delayed gratification. I wish I could talk. With delayed gratification, which is 100% associated with Saturn, which deals with restriction, that is you making the conscious decision like, okay, I can eat this cupcake right now, but I know if I eat this cupcake right now, long term, the cupcake isn't gonna, it's gonna show up again. I'm gonna see the cupcake again. And when I see the cupcake again, it's probably gonna be in a place that I don't want it to be. Like my stomach, like my thighs, like my cheeks, wherever you gain weight, that's where that cupcake is gonna show up once more. But if you can delay yourself, do delayed gratification, saying, I'm not gonna take this cupcake right now, because in the long run, that means that my stomach is gonna get flatter, my face is gonna look a little slimmer, and I'm going to get my gratification from the fact that I look the way I wanna look, you know what I mean? Or not spending your money impulsively on food and putting that money away in a savings so that you can use it later on if you have some type of emergency, or you can put it towards a trip, right? It's just understanding that bigger picture. That's Saturn. It's restriction for the greatest good. It's teaching us how to not become slaves to our bodies, to our emotions, to our senses, right? So that is a very spiritual thing in itself, because one of the things that they teach you, that you learn within spirituality, teach you to detach from things. You're asked to detach from this world and the things that our flesh wants, so that you're not ruled by any, easily swayed by anything outside of you. So there's a correlation through that, like through learning how to be restrictive and how to detach, in a sense, you're strengthening your spirituality. That is why Saturn rules Aquarius. Aquarius is one of the most detached signs in the zodiac. That's one of the first things you say about Aquarius when you think about it. And it's because Aquarius knows how to detach themselves from their pleasures in some ways. You know, they understand how to understand the bigger picture of it, and they get that from Saturn. Another thing is, interestingly enough, if you understand chakras, so Saturn is associated with the 6th chakra, your third eye, which is the chakra that deals with intuition, with imagination, with all of your psychic ability. So whether it be telepathy, clairvoyance, all of, you know, astral traveling, etc. Like all of these things are happening in your third eye, which is here. And it's about faith, you know, that part is about leaning not to your own understanding. It's about, you know, having faith, having imagination, and using like your intuition in order to make decisions, to come up with whatever conclusions you would like to come up with. That relates to Saturn in the sense that, again, it's that delayed gratification, it's the restriction as well. It's about not just dealing with what you see here and now, it's seeing the bigger picture and learning how to restrict yourself so you can get something bigger. Another thing that I've also read and seen that Saturn is associated with is your root chakra. So your root chakra is below, if I'm not mistaken, it's like below your navel. Or is that your sacral? One of them. It's down there. But your root chakra deals with like your security and your feeling of being safe, the feeling of being safe, the feeling of being protected, being grounded. Saturn rules Capricorn. Capricorns are very much about being grounded as well, you know. Saturn is also about protection, and we say that Saturn is the father, right? We talked about that in the last video, Saturn being the father. Your father growing up is who establishes your sense of security. You know, like if your father is the one who helps you with your authority and also helps you feel safe. So it's that correlation there where it's like Saturn teaches you how to make yourself feel safe, how to learn how to ground yourself and to find those things for yourself. Another big one is Saturn is associated with karma. And karma is not what a lot of people like say it to be, in the sense of like what goes around comes around, in the sense of like, you know, you get a punishment for the things that you do, bad karma, etc. Like, what is important to understand is there's a such thing as called universal law. If you have not, I 100% recommend that you go get the Kabbalah. That definitely goes over all of the laws of the universe. And once you understand that, you realize that none of this shit is personal. You know, it's not personal. You get what you put out. As above, so below. What goes around comes around, in the sense that if you're inputting a lot, you're gonna get it back. Of a certain thing, you'll get that thing back. And it might come in a different form, a different way, whatever have you, but it's coming back, because that's just how the universe works. So back to the example of cupcake. Essentially, that cupcake came back to you. You put that in your body and it showed up again in your stomach, in your face. It just comes around, you know? And it also deals with the saying of like, where attention goes, energy flows. The things that you put your attention to, the things that you are focused on, they manifest. Like, you have the ability to manifest these things. This is why they say fear can cause sickness. Stress causes sickness, because it is you asserting all of this energy into whatever it is that you're fearful of, whatever it is that you feel like stressing about, and it'll manifest and produce itself in a physical form as far as something being wrong with your body and whatever have you. That is karma. We're dealing with karma all day, every day. You know what I mean? But people don't really talk about it until it deals with somebody doing something effed up to you. Then you want to be like, oh, well, karma gonna come back. Karma's a bitch. You know, then we go into all of that. But we are producing our own karma all day long. And then it also gets bigger if you believe in past lives, which I do. You know, then you're brought into this world and your soul has accumulated a certain amount of karma from your past lives. So you're dealing with that as well. Plus the karma that you're accumulating on a daily, right? So Saturn, it wants you to understand that you're always going to reap what you sow. Whatever you are dedicated and willing to, whatever you're dedicated to, whatever you're putting that hard work into, it's gonna accumulate. And whether it's good or bad, whether it's actually what you want or you don't. Hold on, sorry, I'm back. So again, it's whatever you're putting your energy into, those things are going to produce. And sometimes we produce bad karma for ourselves and we don't even realize that's what we're doing, you know, but Saturn will help you see that. So like, for example, and essentially it's not even so much karma, it's just like what you put out, you get back. They always say, like, this is a very kind of extreme example, but they say, like, if you send bad juju to somebody, in a way you're gonna get that back. Like, especially if it's unjustified, there's always gonna be a repercussion for your action, you know what I mean? And in hoodoo they talk a lot about doing things that are justified, you know, like you can, if it's balancing the scales, like if somebody does something messed up to you and you do something messed up to them in return, that can be considered, you know, retribution, right? But if you are just sending bad juju to somebody just for the hell of it, it's always going to come back to you, always. And don't let that person be, you know, let them be protected like a mug. It's really coming back, right? Or if you spend a lot of time worrying about the things that you don't want to happen. So for example, let's say you don't want homeless and you spend a lot of your time thinking about being homeless, thinking about not having a home, etc., etc. And then guess what? You manifest a situation where you don't have a home. You were paying towards that. And like, that's the thing with spirituality. It can be very hard to accept that. You know, like we like to think that we tend to think that we're just like here going along and, you know, life just throws things at us out of nowhere and, you know, things just happen and nobody knows why. But once you get on your spiritual path, you realize that you have a hand in a lot of the things that happen, you know, and you're not out of control and they're not just happening to you out of nowhere. But if you're living in a position or from a place of lack, from a place of fear, from a place of stress, from a place of resentment, all of those things, that's what you attract to yourself. It's going to always try and balance out whatever you put out. It's going to give you that equal. And that is what Saturn rules. So it's important to keep those things in mind. And when you know that, then you have more power in the sense that you can start to be very mindful and very deliberate about how you use your Saturn energy. Okay? So I told you guys I was going to talk about my spirituality and talk about how I think that my Saturn return is gonna help out with that. So for one, I I'm just a spiritual person. That's the only word I have for it. And I have an understanding of the fact that we are a spirit having a human experience. So it's spirit first and then humanity. We tend to think about it the other way around. And I've come to the decision that, and the realization that that is not the case. And by me coming to that realization, I feel like I've really empowered myself in a lot of ways. My mission here, my spiritual mission, I think is very layered, but I do know that it has a lot to do with healing. It has a lot to do with teaching, passing along my knowledge, and also really understanding my own power and harnessing that. Those are my spiritual missions. That's part of what my soul came back here to learn. And I also realized that there's no coincidences. Everything is all tied together. Like when I look at my astrology chart, when I look at my life path number and all of the numerology that goes with me, it all makes sense. It all creates a big picture. The things that have happened to me in my life, the things that I've gone through, the challenges that I've had, etc., etc., they all connect and tell a story. And there's no coincidence in that, you know? I do believe in God. I want to let that be known. You know, I believe in God. I believe in a higher power. I choose to refer to God as spirit. Sometimes I say the Most High. I do have a Christian basis. However, I have evolved out of Christianity in a lot of ways. I don't adhere to religion right now. Not just right now, I probably won't adhere to religion anymore. But I don't adhere to religion. I understand that I am a sovereign being and I'm responsible for this life, what I do, and the karma that I accumulate here. So I hope that gives you guys a little bit of an understanding. But overall, what I think that Saturn is going to end up doing from my from a spiritual tip as far as my Saturn return is, okay, so for one, Saturn is in my third house in Aquarius, which is where Saturn is right now, which is why I know I'm having my Saturn return. Saturn in the third house makes how I experience that, and it's also retrograde, which means you kind of express the energy internally. How that shows up in my life is I don't speak my mind as readily as I should. I don't give my opinions that much. I'm not the first one to try and give an opinion or speak out about something. I hold all that to myself. And the main reason is because I always tell myself that nobody cares. And that it's not going to make a difference. Nobody's going to give a crap, you know? It makes me very cautious, very to myself. I keep a lot of stuff to myself and I just hold back. And that's what Saturn does. Wherever Saturn is in your chart, that is where, that shows restriction. It shows where you restrict yourself for whatever reason. You do it, whatever. You chose, before you came here, you chose to live out that experience. So for me, it just makes me not express myself the way that I need to. The problem with that is, another thing is I also have Saturn conjunct my Uranus and conjunct my Neptune. Neptune deals with your God-given gifts. Shout out to Astrology. She's the first person I heard that from, and it makes. Also, Uranus deals with your authenticity and your rebellion, and it deals with rebellion as well. So with Saturn being conjunct those things in the third house, one, it shows that my actual God-given gift is my voice. And it also shows that the thing that I'm supposed to be using to rebel and to kind of create my own way and to be all like to show my authentic self is my voice. So if I'm restricting myself, not saying how I feel, not speaking out, not having authority and feeling confident about my voice, my perspective, my creativity as far as like writing and stuff like that, if I restrict myself there, which are all things that deal with the third house, I'm basically denying my whole purpose for being here. I'm basically denying God-given talents, like God-given gifts by doing that. So I feel like my Saturn return is going to show me the consequences of that. Okay? You know, it's like, again, what you put in, you get back directly. So, cool. You don't want to speak your mind? I'll show you what that gets you. Cool. You don't want to speak up? You don't want to write? You don't want to express yourself creatively? I'll show you what that gets you. And that's essentially that is what it is. That's what Saturn does. It brings you the consequences of your actions. It brings you the results of what you put in, the compensation. And you just have to deal with it. You learn that lesson, and it's not punishment. That's the other thing, is like, I've learned to think about it differently. Not as punishment, not as, you know, a reward even. So as far as something negative happening as a repercussion of the things that you just continue to do that are not aligning with your overall purpose, that's a lesson. And you'll just have to keep learning that lesson and dealing with that lesson until you decide to say, this is not what I want. This is not for me. I need to come up with something else, has to give, you know? And you will make that choice. Hopefully. No, we have faith. You will make that choice. I know I will. But Saturn will keep doing it as many times as you need to. And when you get to your Saturn return, when Saturn comes back, it's basically bringing all the things that you've accumulated, all the things that you've been doing, all the circles that you've been running in. It's like, okay, so this is what all of your actions up until this point, as I've been gone, this is what it brings back to you. Do you like it? You know, because if you've been doing what you're supposed to be doing, and let's say you have really good aspects to your Saturn, and you're, you know, you don't have an issue with Saturn energy like I do, I kind of struggle with it. So let's say you don't, then when your Saturn return comes around, it might be a little challenging, but you might get some rewards. You might get more rewards than you do lessons. Saturn gives you great rewards because they're long-term. They last. Them rewards stick. So that's a good thing. But regardless, Saturn is always going to bring you what you put out. And that is aligning with universal law. As above, so below. Whatever you put out, it comes back to you. You are a manifester. You are a creator. You're a creator of your reality. The faster you understand that, the better off you'll be. So this is all I wanted to talk about. I just kind of wanted to talk about Saturn from a spiritual standpoint and use it as a way to talk about my spirituality as well. And also, I want us to kind of get comfortable with Saturn, to really understand that as much as it can be really harsh, this energy, and again, like I said, if you're not used to Saturn, if you're not a child of Saturn, then, you know, it can feel like, what the hell? Like, why does the universe hate me? Why do y'all just not want me to survive? Why do y'all not survive? But like, why y'all don't want me to be great? Why can't I just live my best life? And it's because it's an effort to redirect you so that you can get on that path to reach your destiny and to reach your highest good. That's all it is. It's always for your highest good. Everything is for your highest good, believe it or not. So this was one lesson that I know I'm about to start learning for my Saturn return. I'm trying to get a head start on this by even doing this YouTube channel, putting myself out there, making myself talk about these things, you know, and getting comfortable with my voice and having an opinion, etc., etc. This is my jump start on that. But, you know, as I go through this, if and when I come across lessons that deal with this, I will definitely come back and give like a personal story, so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But I really hope all that made sense. What I would say, like a takeaway would be for you guys, what you can do is, again, get your birth chart, see where your Saturn is, what house it's in, and try and relate all that. Like, try and see, like, okay, if you have, let's say you have Saturn in the 4th house, right? That means you have restriction in your home, in the things that make you comfortable, restrictions with your family. You'll want to think about that and relate it to your life and be like, okay, where have I seen that play out? And then from there, you can kind of do a little bit of self-analyzing and see how your Saturn return might play out. Like, what are some themes? What have you been like doing all of this time since Saturn's been going? What have been your habits? What have been your patterns? And how will those things come back to you? That's your homework. Write in the comments below once you do your homework. You know, let me know where your Saturn is and what lessons you think are going to come back and how that might relate to your spirituality. I'd love to hear from you guys. And until next time, bye-bye.